Hello. I want to show you guys some more advanced ways of using booleans that you may not have thought of. This was inspired by elven design in games. You've no doubt seen fancy ornate details in their architecture, weapons, armour and so on, and these patterns are surprisingly easy to make. Let's dive in. So right off the bat we're going to just add in a cube. The way we're going to do this, we're going to make a frame and then use that to do various boolean operations on. So I've just made a cube, scaled it up on the X and Y and made it slightly smaller on the Z axis. Okay, then we're going to add in another cube, and this is going to be our first cutter object. And we're going to scale this so that it basically cuts out the middle portion of this of the first box. Okay, and then we're going to use the brush version of the boolean so that it keeps the cutter active, because all the additional booleans we use are going to be taking away from the original cutter. And when you take away from the cutter, it's going to basically bring back the geometry. So first example of that is if we just add in this cube and scale it on the Y, make it slightly narrower on the X-axis. And then you can see if we cut that away from the cutter, it brings that part of the geometry back, and we've still got control over where that is. So we can move that along anywhere we want it, and we can also rotate it in place to get this sort of angled effect. Another thing we can do if we apply the scale, so it puts the origin point back at the centre, is we can then mirror that across and apply the mirror modifier, and we've got an exact copy on the other side. You can also do this with cylinders, so add in a cylinder, make sure it's slightly taller than the original cutter object. And then we're just going to scale this up quite big. And then if we're scaling it up, we need additional sides, so we'll double that to 64. Shade auto smooth, just to make the sides smooth. And then we're just going to snap this to the edge of the frame. When you use a cylinder, you'll get basically a solid filled object. You'll notice here the shading's gone weird as well. You can fix that just by clicking on the original object and clicking Shade Auto Smooth. So with that cylinder, as before, we can still move that around, and it will just intersect with anything it comes in contact with. If we add in a solidify modifier, we will get control of the thickness of the edge of that circle, and we can use that to make additional frame elements. We can also scale and edit the object. If we scale this all the way along, we get a nice long curve. And the thickness is still controlled by the solidify modifier. As before, we can apply the transforms and then mirror that across. Change the axis to the y-axis. And you can see we can still rotate this in place and get all kinds of different effects and patterns. This time, because we're adding this to the second or third Boolean that we added, we're going to use a union instead of a difference, and then we can add the solidifier again to make a ring that just occupies that middle portion, because it's sitting within the area the other Boolean takes. Again, we've still got access to editing the object, so we can scale that up so it reaches the edge of the frame. Another thing you can do with these cutters is you can run array modifiers on them as well. So as long as the cutter is still active from the brush version on the ball tool, you can still use the most of the modifiers. Just going to apply that circle there and then mirror that across. You can see there I applied the Boolean to the wrong object, so I'm just going to select the correct object this time, use union again and solidify. You can name your cutters if you want to, so you know which one is which. Just going to scale this on the x-axis to make an oval, and then on the y-axis to make it fill the frame. Okay, once you're happy with your design, you can apply all of the Booleans and remove all the cutters. This next step is optional, but you can also, if you plan to bevel or chamfer the design at all, you can clean up the topology. I'm just doing that fast forwarded here. It just makes it easier. So I've basically deleted everything apart from the top faces, and I'm just fixing up the geometry. Could have just done half here and then mirrored it across, but I was on a bit of a roll, so just carry on going. And then just extrude it back up. Fix up the topology a little bit again. Then you can add in a sort of back plate and go and texture it. Just adding the ambient occlusion, a bevel node, make it metallic and shiny, and there we have a nice gold plate. Once you've got your plate created with whatever design you chose, you can then do various effects to it, like add twist modifiers, bend modifiers, arrays, and come up with some interesting designs. You can also use mirrors and rotate those around empty objects to get some really cool abstract designs. I hope you found this useful. Thank you for watching and take care.